You wake before the sun in a city of marble and murmurs. Rome, 63 BC. The air is still, thick with the scent of damp clay rooftops and bread baking somewhere down a street that doesn't have a name, because street signs won't be invented for a while. Your sandals crunch softly on gravel as you step outside, the stone beneath your feet already warm with yesterday's heat. Rome doesn't sleep much, and neither, it seems, do you. This is a city where power is worn like fabric, literally. And today, you're about to get dressed for politics, which in Rome means wrapping yourself in a giant sheet and pretending it's comfortable. You squint at the pale shape hanging from a wooden peg on your wall. Your toga. It looks like a drop tablecloth. It feels like wearing a small couch. But it tells the world you are a citizen. And more than that, you're respectable, educated, and very much not planning on doing anything labor-related. Toga means, I do speeches, not chores. Just a gentle warning. You probably won't make it through this day. Romans didn't have air conditioning, and the toga weighs about 20 pounds when it's humid. Before we begin, if you find yourself already drifting into ancient dreams of marble colonnades and lazy aqueducts, feel free to like and subscribe for more sleepy travels through time. Comment below where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. We always love to know where the empire reaches. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. You wrap yourself slowly in the many fold of your toga, white wool, coarse and clean. There's a red stripe running down the edge. Not too thick, just the width allowed by law for some of your rank, a senator. This stripe is called a latus clavis, which sounds like a magical spell, but is really just Roman for I get to talk longer in meetings. As you adjust the cloth around your shoulder, you remember the ritual of dressing isn't just about covering up, it's about signaling. Wearing the wrong toga to the wrong event is a little like showing up to court in swim trunks. Worse, it's punishable, because Rome doesn't do fashion accidents. They do legislation. And what you're wearing today is a toga candida, a bright, chalked white version used when seeking office. The Latin word candida is where we get candidate. Yes, ancient politicians literally bleached their clothes to shine brighter, which somehow feels exactly like modern campaigning, minus the microphones. The toga is uncomfortable, yes, but it's a social performance. And in Rome, performance is everything. It's why senators walk like they're being watched, because they are. People line the forum like it's a reality show, murmuring about who's wearing what and who got too many pleats wrong. You pass a shop selling amphory, narrow clay jugs painted with olives and stern-looking gods. A little boy is tugging at his mother's tunic, asking for honeyed figs. She tells him no. He pouts. Some things don't change. You hear the soft slosh of a public fountain nearby. Water glimmers in a carved basin, gifted by some magistrate whose name no one remembers, but who very much wanted to be remembered. His face is chiseled into the side of the stone, his nose mostly worn off by time and pigeons. Historians still debate whether the toga's design came from the Etruscans or was an evolution of the Roman cloak, the lina. Either way, it was never meant for comfort. One obscure record suggests that men often practiced their toga folding with assistants or slaves, because doing it alone could take up to half an hour. So next time you struggle with a fitted sheet, know you're not alone in history. You walk past the temple of Castor and Pollux. Two marble brothers standing guard, sandals at the ready, looking like they're either about to duel or launch a band. You nod respectfully. Even the gods appreciate a well-folded toga. It's only mid-morning, and already you're sweating through your dignity. But this is Rome, and sweat is political. You arrive at the Curia Julia, the Senate House, where power echoes and whispers and the marble floor reflect your footsteps like a quiet applause. The building isn't grand. Not yet. Julius Caesar hasn't finished remodeling it, but it holds the weight of the Republic in its walls. The air inside smells like wax and wet limestone. You breathe it in and feel immediately 10% more self-important. Inside, 100 other togas shuffle and murmur. It's like a flock of nervous swans trying to negotiate a treaty. You spot Marcus Tullius, Cicero near the center, pacing in slow circles. His toga is as crisp as his rhetoric, which he's probably rehearsing under his breath. Cicero doesn't improvise. He crafts. You find your seat, stone, slightly chipped, just the way you left it. A few names are scratched into the bench beside you. Graffiti isn't a modern invention. One reads, Lucius loves Livia. Another, down with Gaius, bore speeches. Subtle, timeless political critique. As the session begins, someone clears their throat with the gravity of a war declaration. It's Cato the Younger. He rises slowly, wearing his toga stricta, tightly wound as a moral principle. This guy wears his virtue like body armor. He even refuses to remove his shoes indoors, which some think is symbolic, and others think is just annoying. He starts talking about corruption. Again, you zone out a little, watching a fly land on a senator's bald head, and make itself comfortable. You consider whether the toga makes you look wise, or just vaguely like a curtain. Today's major historical fact. This is the year Catalan tries to overthrow the Republic. You're hearing the early murmurs of the Catalan conspiracy, though you don't know it yet. A few senators exchange glances, some too casual, some too rehearsed. You get the feeling the real debate isn't happening here, but somewhere in the shaded courtyards and whispered corners of taverns. Outside, the forum is busy. A pig squeals as it's led to sacrifice. A woman sells wreaths of laurel and garlic, both meant to ward off envy. Apparently, jealousy hates the smell of garlic. Obscure but plausible. A slave quietly offers water in a clay cup. You accept because declining feels dramatic and hydration is political. As you sip, the senator beside you leans over and mutters, "How long do you think this will go on?" You shrug. With Cato, time bends. There's a debate over grain distribution. Again, some senators argue the poor need subsidies. Others argue the poor need to try harder. You resist the urge to roll your eyes, which is technically frowned upon in the Senate, but deeply satisfying. The light shifts on the marble walls. Afternoon creeps in through high windows like a golden fog. Someone yawns. You feel it spread like a virus through the room. A pigeon lands on a ledge outside. It watches the Senate with blank detachment, as if to say, humans and their endless debates. The bird is probably right. Historians still argue over how much of Cicero's speeches were delivered exactly as recorded. Some say they were polished later. Some say they were ghost-written by history itself. And as the day stretches onward like your toga's hem, you begin to wonder if wearing pajamas might have been smarter. The senators might disagree, but honestly, they do that a lot. You shift your weight, trying to stop your leg from going numb on the stone bench. Welcome to politics. Roman style. A toga, a long speech, and a prayer that lunch comes soon. You step out of the curia into a world dripping with heat and arguments. The Roman sun doesn't care about your senatorial dignity. It rests heavy on your shoulders, on your toga, on your soul. The kind of sun that makes you reconsider your career choices. Perhaps gladiator school wasn't such a ridiculous idea after all. The marble of the forum reflects the light like a second sun under your feet. It's blinding. You squint, shuffle forward, and let your sandals slap lazily against the stones. The streets are alive. A fruit seller yells about his overripe apricots. Two men are arguing over the price of a goat. Somewhere nearby, a street performer juggles knives with the quiet desperation of someone who used to dream a theater. You drift past the Temple of Saturn, its tall columns casting a rare sliver of shade. You linger. Everyone does. Romans may not have invented lounging, but they perfected it. Shade in Rome is real estate. A priest in a yellow tunic is burning incense. You inhale it, something musky and resinous, like dried pine and nervous sweat. A sacrifice is being prepared. A white bull stands still, painted with red ribbons and glinting beads. You look into its eyes and wonder if it knows. Probably. Animals in Rome are smarter than most senators. You hear a shout. Someone from the crowd throws their arms in the air. The grain ration was reduced again. More murmurs. You feel the tension. Rome is held together by marble and bread, and when one of those cracks, people notice. Today's historical fact. The annona, Rome's grain distribution system, was one of the earliest examples of a welfare state. It fed hundreds of thousands of people, but also meant every senator's popularity could rise or fall with the size of a wheat sack. You make your way toward the Basilica Julia, not a church. This is centuries before those. A basilica in Rome is a public space, law courts, shops, and gossip all swirling under one giant roof. It's a good place to loiter with purpose. Inside, the air is cool. Your footsteps echo. The polished floors are worn smooth by 1,000 pairs of feet, and at least one chariot accident no one talks about. You see scribes hunched over wax tablets, scrawling legal jargon like it matters. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. The basilica hums with bureaucracy. You approach a corner where 3 young men argue about a speech from Cicero. One insists it was brilliant. Another says it was theft from a lost Greek orator, probably. The third says Cicero's voice cracked halfway through, and that's all he'll remember. You smile because this is Rome. Critique is an Olympic sport. Nearby, a woman paints her lips with crushed berries, using a polished silver disc as a mirror. She is technically not allowed inside as a woman without business, but no one is stopping her. Her presence is business enough. You take a seat on a wide stone bench and watch the world revolve. Rome is a machine of people. Officials, priests, thieves, poets, donkeys, gossips, lovers, liars, and dreamers. Everyone is part of it, and no one quite knows who's driving. An obscure tidbit. Some Romans use powdered snail shells as toothpaste. You don't know that yet, and frankly, you're glad. You pull your toga tighter. It's slipping. It always slips. Toga adjustment is a full-time job. You've seen slaves whose only task was toga maintenance. You envy them. Slightly. Historians still debate whether the average Roman actually wore togas every day, or if it was more ceremonial than practical. Evidence suggests most people wore tunics, saving the toga for court, funerals, and looking impressive in public. A child runs past, nearly tripping over your sandals. You hear his mother shout something involving Jupiter and the boy's ears. You remember being that age, when the city seemed impossibly large and full of promise. It still is, but it also owes you money and has a habit of setting things on fire. The sun shifts. Your stomach growls. And you remember, there's a tavern behind the Temple of Vesta that serves boiled eggs and olives at this hour. You rise slowly. Dignity is harder when you're hungry. Politics can wait. Lunch is eternal. You arrive at the tavern just as a shouting match ends with someone flipping over a board of dice. The loser protests, swearing the gods were on his side. The gods, if they are here, are pretending not to notice. The air inside smells like baked barley vinegar and wet sandals. The floor is scattered with olive pits and bread crusts. A server with arms like amphory nods at you. He knows you. Senators come here when they want to feel like plebeians, without the actual inconvenience of poverty. You sit on a stone stool. The table is uneven. Your toga bunches awkwardly in your lap, like a wool octopus refusing to die quietly. You try to fold it discreetly. You fail. A man across from you watches. Amused, he raises his cup and toasts your struggle. You order salted fish, boiled lentils, and a cup of watered wine. It arrives fast and lukewarm. You eat with your fingers, as everyone does. You try not to think about where those fingers have been. Your neighbor leans in and begins to talk. Uninvited, of course. He's a retired centurion, drunk on nostalgia and cheap Falernian wine. He tells you about Gaul, about snow in Germania, about the time he saw a druid turn into a wolf. He's either lying or oversharing. Possibly both. You nod politely. He tells you Rome is falling apart, that the Senate is full of cowards, that someone needs to stand up and save it. You murmur something about Cato. He snorts. Cato wears sandals to bed, he says, then belches and immediately falls asleep against the table. You stare into your wine. It's thin, sour, and mildly refreshing, like Roman politics. Today's major fact: Roman taverns or papyri were common social spaces. They weren't just for drinking. People came to play dice, eat cheap food, and exchange information. Many were located near bathhouses and brothels. Convenient. A cat jumps onto your table. It eyes your fish, then the fish again. You give it the bones. It accepts them with regal disinterest. Cats in Rome are unofficial gods. No one admits this, but everyone knows. Behind you, 2 men are arguing about chariot racing. One says the blues are finished. The other says the greens bribe the gods. You don't care, but you find yourself agreeing with both, just to keep the peace. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans believe rubbing cabbage juice on your feet prevented hangovers. You make a mental note, never to try that. Historians still debate how many Romans could actually read and write. Estimates range wildly. Some say literacy was widespread among freeborn men. Others argue it was mostly confined to elites. What's certain is this: taverns didn't require reading. You finish your meal and stand up slowly. Your knees crack. You pretend they didn't. The centurion snores softly, cradling his empty cup like a lost cause. Outside, the shadows are longer. The heat has softened. Somewhere, a flute plays a lazy tune. The city exhales. You decide to walk toward the baths, the public ones, where the steam might unstick your joints and you can forget for a little while that you're part of a republic on the edge. Your toga has a new stain. You pretend it's a philosophical statement. You walk with the late afternoon light stretching across the cobblestones, your toga brushing the backs of your legs like a needy pet. The city is winding down in its own chaotic rhythm. Carts creaking home, voices softening, smoke from cook fires curling like sleepy serpents into the air. Rome doesn't ever really stop, but it knows how to slow its heartbeat for a moment. And you, toga-wrapped and weary, are headed for the nearest sanctuary available to the Roman soul, the public baths. The baths of Agrippa await you, steaming and echoing with the murmured gossip of half the city. You've been here before. Everyone has. Rome isn't a place for secrets, and the bathhouse is the least secret place of all. At the door, you pass a man selling oil in little clay flasks. He gestures toward his best product, claiming it's scented with saffron and imported from Egypt. You raise an eyebrow. It probably smells like goat, but you buy anyway. Scent is relative. Inside, the walls are mosaic with scenes of dolphins and sea gods. The floor is slippery, with a thin sheen of foot-worn marble and ambition. You follow the order of things: apoditerium to undress, tepidarium to warm, caldarium to sweat, frigidarium to shiver dramatically and pretend it's invigorating. In the changing room, a boy offers to guard your belongings. He smiles with the overly sincere expression of someone who's already planning to steal your sandals. You nod anyway. Trust is a luxury. So are sandals. You step into the tepidarium, the warm room. The air is heavy, like a velvet curtain soaked in steam. Men sit quietly on stone benches, eyes half closed like sages or sausages depending on your perspective. You take your place and feel your muscles begin to loosen. This is the true magic of Rome. Not its armies, not its roads, but its ability to turn bathing into a daily rite of social leveling and collective sweat. Today's historical fact: Roman baths weren't just for getting clean. They were social hubs. Business deals were struck, political alliances whispered, and at least one emperor, Hadrian, reportedly made hiring decisions while soaking. Multitasking, ancient style. Someone beside you is humming. Another scratches his name into the plaster. A debate sparks in a corner over whether a fish sauce from Hispania is superior to the local one. You listen. This matters more than the grain tax, apparently. You slide into the caldarium, the hot room. It's like stepping into a teapot mid-thought. Steam curls around your nose, stinging your eyes. You sit near the hypocaust. The floor is heated from below by a fire tended by sweaty, soot-covered workers no one thanks. A man with a voice like gravel starts reciting poetry. Loudly, badly. No one stops him. It's the bathhouse equivalent of a guy with a guitar at a party. An obscure tidbit. Some Romans believe that bathing in different sequences affected your mood. Cold first? Invigorated. Hot last? Sleepy. Tepid only? Probably a philosopher. You stretch, letting the sweat bead along your forehead, your arms, the hollow of your collarbone where the toga used to cling. You are melting in the most acceptable way. Historians still debate how affordable these baths really were. Entry was often free, or just a few quadrants, copper coins. But bringing your own oil and towel was expected. Some argue it was more inclusive than not. Others say the wealthy used private sections. As with all things Rome, It depends on who you ask and how many coins they carry. You move finally to the frigidarium. Cold water, like a slap from Neptune himself. You inhale sharply as you step in, your skin tightening, your breath vanishing for a moment. This is supposed to refresh you. It mostly just makes you reevaluate your life. You emerge dripping, tired, and strangely light. Your toga waits outside, creased and suspiciously damp. You red drape it with minimal dignity. It's nearly dusk now. Time to find a quiet street, a kind breeze, and perhaps some leftover bread. Even in Rome, a nap is revolutionary. You walk beneath an orange sky that glows like polished brass, the city sighing in golden tones. The streets are quieter now, the bustle softened to murmurs and clinks of pottery. Shadows stretch long, draping the forum in soft folds, like Rome herself is gathering her toga for bed. The air smells like warm dust, grilled meat, and promise. You pass a man feeding a stray dog with the tenderness of someone who's lost too much. The dog eats slowly, gratefully, as if it understands hunger in philosophical terms. You find a bench near the portico of Octavia. It's cool, chipped, and shaped like a frown, but it holds you. You sit, stretch out your legs, and watch the lanterns being lit along the walkways. They flicker with olive oil flames, casting little gold halos over the heads of tired citizens. A group of young men pass, singing half of a drinking song. The other half is slurred into oblivion. One wears his toga like a cape, dramatically off one shoulder. You recall your own youthful evenings of philosophical debate that, somehow, always ended in wrestling. Today's historical fact. The portico of Octavia, where you sit, was commissioned by Augustus in honor of his sister. It housed libraries, art, and even a fish market. An odd trio, but a thoroughly Roman one. You watch a woman selling roasted chestnuts. She hands them to customers in strips of reused parchment, probably some failed legal document or romantic poem no one liked. Recycling, ancient edition. A cart rolls past, its driver asleep, the mule seemingly in charge. You suspect the mule has a better sense of direction. A man stops near your bench, adjusts his tunic, and begins declaiming a speech from memory. It's from Terence, the playwright. He gets 2 lines in before a cat knocks over his scroll, and the moment collapses. You clap quietly. So does the cat. An obscure tidbit. Some Romans believed cats were guardians of the underworld. Killing one was considered deeply unlucky, which may explain why that cat just stole a chestnut without consequence. Historians still debate whether the average Roman's evening involved as much poetry as the elite would have you believe. Likely, most people spent it cleaning, cooking, or trying to avoid stepping in donkey dung. You lean back, watching the stars begin to blink on. The night wraps gently around the city, softer than your toga and infinitely more elegant. Your eyelids grow heavy. Your mind drifts. You think of the Senate's marble echo, of hot water and garlic oil, of fish bones and scribbled benches. You think of the toga, your woolen badge of burdens and appearances, and imagine trading it for a blanket. Rome hums low, a city falling asleep in pieces. So do you? You wake up just enough to notice the wind has changed. It whispers now through the marble columns like an old senator trying to make one last point before bed. The stars are clearer. The moon, a soft crescent, hangs over Rome like a well-trimmed thumbnail. You shift on the stone bench, your back disagreeing with your choices, and decide to walk again. Slowly. As slowly as Rome forgets its debts. Your sandals scuff along a narrow street flanked by shuttered shops. A potter's stall, it's where stacked like forgotten promises, leans into the night with chipped optimism. Farther down, a baker's doorway glows faintly. The ovens never quite sleep. A waft of yeast, and ash drifts toward you. It smells like dreams in low form. You follow the scent. You always do. At the corner, a man with soot on his face hums as he turns around a flatbreads with a paddle long enough to double as a jousting lance. He notices you and gives a small nod as if to say, "Yes, the bread knows what time it is." You hand him a coin. He hands you something warm and soft, wrapped in fig leaf and generosity. You chew slowly, savoring the slight crunch of crust, the steam rising with each bite like a memory. You don't speak. Neither does he. That's the Roman way. Communion through carbohydrates. Today's major historical fact. Roman bakers or pisters were organized into guilds and held in higher esteem than you might expect. Bread wasn't just food, it was political. Grain shortages could end careers or ignite riots. A well-fed Rome was a stable Rome. You turn a corner, the bread in hand growing lighter, your steps growing softer. A rat skitters across your path. You salute it with mock gravity. Rome belongs to all its citizens, after all. You pass a fountain, small, cracked, but still flowing. You dip your hand in. The water is cold and smells faintly of iron and old gods. You splash your face, more ritual than refreshment. An obscure tidbit. Romans believed certain fountains were sacred and whispered offerings into their streams. Wishes, curses, declarations of love. Somewhere beneath this very street, there's probably a stream full of secrets. From a nearby window, you hear laughter. Light intimate. Someone telling a story in the dark. You can't catch the words, but the rhythm is familiar. It's the cadence of people who survive the day and still like each other. Historians still debate whether Roman nights were peaceful or perilous. Some say curfews were enforced. Others argue the city buzzed with after-hours life. It likely depended on your neighborhood and whether your sandals were fast. You pause beneath a fig tree, its leaves rustling softly. You look up, the stars more numerous now. Rome above, Rome below. You wrap your toga tighter. Not because it's cold, but because it's night. And in Rome, that still means something. The Aventine Hill is a long, slow climb, especially at this hour. But something draws you there, some quiet instinct, like the city itself suggesting, just a little farther. The street narrows, winding between garden walls and half-sleeping villas. You pass a pair of statues guarding a gate. Their faces are worn smooth, their eyes blank. They've seen everything and judged none of it. At the crest of the hill, you reach a small grove of cypress trees. The air smells of resin and dry earth. You hear crickets, soft and steady, like nature's version of bureaucratic paperwork. You sit on a low wall, overlooking the city. Below you, Rome glimmers, oil lamps, torches, the rare flicker of lightning from a distant storm. It looks peaceful from here, almost innocent, which is, of course, hilarious. Your toga rustles as you settle in. The wind picks up, tugging gently at the folds like a child with a secret. You lean back, staring at the sky. The constellations are where they should be. The same stars that watched Romulus draw the first trench for his walls now watch you try to digest too much bread. Today's historical fact. The Aventine Hill, while now quiet, was once home to the plebeians and their political assembly. It was a site of protests, speeches, and even the legendary secession to plebs, when the working class simply walked out of the city. A dramatic exit, centuries before labor unions. From your perch, you spot the curve of the Circus Maximus. Dark and empty now, but you can still hear the phantom roar of chariot crowds in your imagination. You remember the thrill, the dust, the mad frenzy of horses and men spinning toward glory or injury. Sometimes both. A gust of wind carries a scent of lavender. Somewhere below, someone is boiling herbs to scent their home, or maybe to cover the smell of last night's fish. Rome is layered that way. An obscure cultural tidbit. Roman homes often had small shrines called lauraria, where families placed statues of household gods. Offerings of honey cakes, wine, and sometimes coins were made daily. A divine tip jar, if you will. You wonder what your own household gods would say about your day. Too many speeches. Probably not enough humility. They always say that. Historians still debate the exact location of several important Aventine temples, buried now beneath modern buildings and centuries of forgetfulness. The gods haven't moved, we just lost the addresses. A dog howls in the distance, not in warning, just in habit. Somewhere nearby, a lyre plays a minor tune. Someone is mourning or remembering, or just drunk and poetic. All valid. You lie back on the stone, the sky vast above you, the toga bunching under your head like a reluctant pillow. You stare upward, eyelids fluttering. Rome murmurs. Not loud, not soft, just constant, like breath. Like history, try not to wake you. And slowly, gently, you let it keep talking as your thoughts begin to dissolve like wax in a warm bath. You wake not with a start, but with a sigh, the kind that belongs to people who've slept just enough to remember they're still tired. The stars have rotated a little in the sky, and the Aventine stone beneath you has grown cool, almost damp with dew. Your toga has bunched at your waist again. Of course, togas weren't designed with sleeping in mind, but neither was senatorial life, and here you are. You stretch your legs, slow and creaky, and sit upright. The city still glows below, though dimmer now. Even Rome, eternal and ceaseless, has hours of quiet. The streets flicker less. The gossip has gone to bed. Somewhere, a torch sputters and dies, unnoticed. You descend the hill with the pace of a man who knows he won't be interrupted. The Aventine shadows stretch like sleepy cats across the cobblestones. Your sandals whisper against the earth, each step sounding more like thought than movement. At the bottom of the hill, you find yourself wandering toward the Tiber. The river smells like reeds, fish, and leftover ambition. It gurgles lazily, reflecting the half-moon in broken patches. A boat drifts by without urgency. The ferryman doesn't look up. You wonder if he's real or some minor river god moonlighting. You pause at a small bridge, a stone arch, worn smooth by centuries of feet and stories. You sit again, because Rome is best when experienced at bench level. A breeze plays with your hair. The toga, naturally, resists settling. Today's historical fact. The Tiber River was both lifeline and liability. It carried goods, travelers, sewage, and legends. The Romans both revered and feared it. It was sacred, and yet they also dumped things in it they'd rather forget, including, sometimes, each other. A night fisherman nearby has cast a net into the black water. He hums a tune you don't recognize. It sounds old, older than Latin, older than worry. You watch as he pulls in his net. Nothing. He shrugs, resets it. In Rome, disappointment is just part of the ritual. You hear the rustle of something behind you. Just a dog, nose into a pile of discarded grape stems. He finds one, chews it, and looks vaguely ashamed. You nod in solidarity. Not all meals are triumphs. An obscure tidbit. Ancient Romans believed that dreams carried messages from the gods, especially if you dream by running water. Which makes you wonder, has the Tiber been whispering in your sleep this whole time? Historians still debate the exact rituals performed at the Tiber's sacred festivals. Some involved wreaths, others involved floating small votive offerings. One oddly specific record mentions a cake shaped like a boat. Symbolic? Or just hungry? You stand, eventually. The bridge creaks faintly as you cross. The city waits on the other side, older by the hour, but still itself. A man shuffles past, muttering to himself in broken Latin. He clutches a scroll, or maybe a laundry list. Either way, he looks like someone who never quite went to sleep and isn't entirely convinced it's necessary. The moonlight puddles across the pavement now, pale and forgiving. Rome looks tired, but not exhausted. She is always a little awake. You walk with no purpose now, only direction. Left, then left again. Past a statue missing its nose and pride. Toward a corner where fig trees lean toward the road like gossips. And above you, the stars continue their ancient rotation. Steadier than senators, quieter than the gods. You find yourself at the edge of the forum once more, now dressed in stillness and soft shadows. The buildings stand like tired sentinels. Their grandeur is not diminished, only muted, like a poet in mid-thought. You walk through the archways where marble meets moonlight. The ground beneath your feet still holds the heat of the day. Rome takes time to cool. Even in sleep, she is warm with memory. A street cleaner moves slowly through the plaza, sweeping away the dust of speeches and sandals. You wonder what he thinks about as he works. The state of the Republic? The cost of olives? The fact that Cicero never tips? You find a familiar column, half finished. Its capital still rough from the sculptor's chisel. You lean against it, grounding yourself. The stone is cool and solid, unmoving, unlike most of your life. Today's major historical fact. The Forum Romanum was a literal and symbolic heart of Roman public life. Temples, courts, markets, speeches, trials, all happened here. It was a city within a city. An ancient TED Talk with more shouting. A night guard strolls by in a leather cuirass that gleams in the torchlight. He nods at you and you nod back. Neither of you asks what the other is doing up this late. That would imply judgment, and Rome is not a city for shame. Nearby, someone has left a wax tablet open on a ledge. You pick it up. Scribbles, half a poem or maybe just a grocery list. You imagine the author, young, distracted, possibly tipsy, forgetting it mid-thought. The wax is smudged into a tiny constellation of nonsense. You hear soft footsteps behind you. A couple walks past, whispering in Greek. Lovers, perhaps, or spies. In Rome, the difference is often theatrical, an obscure cultural tidbit. Romans sometimes tied small bells to their front doors, not for decoration, but to ward off wandering spirits, and possibly nosy neighbors. Historians still argue whether the Forum was more sacred or more secular. With temples next to taverns and senators debating just steps from butchers, it was a mashup of reverence and reality. Rome rarely chose one over the other. You stretch your arms. The toga groans. You suspect it resents being awake this long. You pat it like an old horse and continue down the arcade, where the roof lets in slices of moonlight between the columns. A gust of wind tugs at a banner hanging from a magistrate's office. It flutters weakly, like an argument without conviction. You pause near the rostra, the speaker's platform. You've stood here before. You've heard Cicero thunder, seen Cato glare, watched younger senators tremble under the weight of their own voices. Now it's empty, just a slab of stone and memory. You close your eyes. You hear the echoes. They don't say anything new, just the same old worries, grain, borders, ambition, betrayal. You realize, not for the first time, that history is a loop with good lighting. A soft laugh escapes you. You didn't expect to find peace here, at the center of empire. But it's here, quiet, broken, but real. Rome sleeps behind you. You walk forward, quietly. The toga, at last, stops resisting. The first hints of dawn trace the sky in watercolor, lavender, gray, the faintest whisper of pink. You feel it before you see it. The shift. Rome doesn't wake all at once. She stretches first. A door creaks open. A rooster coughs, unsure whether it's time. Somewhere, a woman sweeps a doorstep with the rhythm of someone who's done this every morning since before the Republic was a twinkle in Romulus's eye. You are walking again, but it feels different now. Less wandering, more floating. The air is cool and clean, scrubbed by sleep and silence. You pass the Arch of Titus, its carvings catching light. You can almost hear the rustle of stolen Jewish treasure if you listen hard enough. But maybe that's just your imagination and your toga whispering again. You wander into a street you've seen before, but never at this hour. Everything familiar looks different in half-light. Even the stones seem gentler. At a corner, a baker hauls open his shutters. He nods at you. You're not sure if he recognizes you, or just recognizes the look of a man who's had a long night of thinking and a short nap on public stone. You sit on a step across from his stall. He offers you something warm, unasked, a hunk of soft bread filled with cheese and herbs. You don't decline. Refusing a baker's kindness in Rome is like declining a hug from Vesta herself. Unwise. Today's major historical fact. Roman bakeries often doubled as community hubs. They weren't just places to buy bread. They were places to get news, share gossip, and leave messages etched into walls or whisper between loaves. They were the original social networks, just with more gluten. A child skips past, chasing a wooden hoop. She giggles, trips, and rights herself with the sheer elasticity of youth. Her mother follows at a dignified pace, carrying a basket full of lemons and leafy things. Breakfast, perhaps, or remedies. The city continues to uncurl. A man with a ladder climbs a wall to adjust a political notice. It's peeling. He pastes a new one over it. Something about a candidate for praetor. You squint. You've heard of him. Loud voice. Bad breath. Promises too big to be honest. You sip water from a public fountain. Cool and metallic. The marble around it is worn where thousands of hands have touched it, seeking relief or luck, or just something to lean on. An obscure tidbit. Romans usually leave little wax figures of limbs, arms, legs, ears, at temples as offerings when those parts healed. A divine lost and found for the body. Historians still debate the exact recipe of ancient Roman bread. Some say it was dense and sour. Others claim lighter. Airy textures emerged later under Greek influence. All agree. Bread was survival, politics, and comfort rolled into one edible miracle. You stretch your legs and rise again. The toga now smells faintly of charcoal and cheese. You decide that's acceptable. You even consider an upgrade. You walk slowly, not out of fatigue, but out of reverence. This is Rome in her kindest hour, when even the marble seems soft and the gods haven't yet opened their ledgers for the day. The city isn't awake yet, but she's thinking about it. The sun finally crests the horizon like a senator arriving late, and making it everyone's problem. Light spills over the rooftops, brushing the temples and statues in gold. You squint, and for a brief second, Rome looks like she believes her own legends. You find yourself heading toward the Palatine Hill, the aristocratic cradle of the city, where emperors build palaces and poets climb for inspiration. It's quieter here, still wrapped in the after-sleep hush. The leaves on the olive trees rustle with a self-importance only ancient plants can possess. You pass a gate guarded by 2 soldiers. One is awake. One is pretending not to be asleep. You nod to both. The first nods back. The second doesn't notice. You climb the steps slowly, your feet remembering each one. The toga drapes neatly now, obedient, perhaps resigned. It no longer tries to trip you. That's something. From the top, the city unfolds beneath you. You can see the Forum, the Circus Maximus, the patchwork of clay rooftops and white stone walls. It looks like a mosaic from here, impossibly arranged, yet entirely alive. You find a shaded bench beside a fig tree. You sit, not because you're tired, but because there are moments in Rome that deserve stillness. Today's historical fact. The Palatine Hill is the legendary birthplace of Rome. This is where Romulus supposedly built his first hut, after fighting his brother Remus, over which hill was better. A fight, historians say, that ended poorly for Remus. An old man nearby feeds birds from his palm. Pigeons, mostly. A few sparrows. They flutter around him like badly trained thoughts. He hums a tune that sounds like something older than Rome. You wonder how long he's been doing this. A pair of lovers stroll past, their hands nearly but not quite touching. Their conversation is quiet, full of pauses and sighs. The kind of talk that doesn't need answers, just presence. An obscure tidbit. Ancient Romans believed the fig tree was sacred to Mars and to Romulus. The Ficus ruminalis, near the Lupercal cave, was believed to have shaded the twins when the she-wolf found them. A holy tree with quite the rhizome. Historians still debate whether the she-wolf that suckled Romulus and Remus was literal or symbolic. Some say it referred to a local woman of ill repute nicknamed the Wolf. The line between myth and neighborhood gossip is thin. A breeze plays through your hair. You tilt your face to the sun, letting it warm your eyelids. Your breath deepens. Your thoughts slow. The toga rests lightly now, less garment than blanket. Below, Rome wakes. She yawns, scratches her temples, checks her schedules. But up here, time still stretches. And you, wrapped in wool and myth, feel yourself begin to drift again. One more citizen floating through history, like a leaf on the Tiber. The sun is higher now, and with it comes the warm insistence of reality. Voices rise. Carts rattle. The city no longer hums. It talks. Loudly. You stir on the Palatine bench. Toga slightly asks you, drool dried with the quiet dignity of a man who once ran for office and now runs some obligation. You stand. Eventually, the birds have flown. The fig tree rustles as if laughing gently behind your back. You nod to the old man again. He's still humming, still feeding invisible crumbs to the air. Your steps take you down a side path, one lined with wildflowers and small, crumbling statues. Gods with no names now. Faces long eroded. You pause at one, a woman, maybe a goddess, holding a jug. The fingers are gone. The jug cracked. But the grace remains. Today's historical fact. Many Roman villas and palaces had private shrines to household deities, Laras and Penates, guardians of home, pantry, and flame. Offerings of fruit, wine, or grain were left daily. Rome ran on ritual, even while it pretended to run on law. The air smells sweet here, jasmine, thyme, maybe beeswax from some distant candle. You pass a vine creeping across a wall. Its leaves are bright, smug with sunlight. A lizard blinks at you from a stone. You both choose not to acknowledge each other. Mutual respect. You descend carefully down a shaded stair that curls like a forgotten sentence. At the bottom, you emerge behind a quiet villa. The servants are hanging linens, white sheets ballooning in the breeze like Roman ghosts stretching after a nap. You pass them. One nods. Another hums. A young girl stares at you, then at your toga, which has somehow acquired a grape stain. You nod solemnly as if to say, "This is the price of empire." An obscure tidbit. Some Romans believe grapes, especially the first of the season, should be eaten only after being blessed by a priest. Others believed you should just eat them before your neighbor does. Religion and rivalry often shared a plate. Historians still debate whether life for Roman servants in elite homes was tolerable or torment. Some were literate, trusted, even freed. Others were not. What's certain is that the linen was always folded better than the senator's morals. You walk on. The toga drags slightly in the dust. A passing donkey sniffs at it disapprovingly. Somewhere nearby, bells chime, the soft kind that signal midday meals, or at least a fantasy of them. You follow your nose again. Rome doesn't run on plans. It runs on impulse and timing. At the next corner, a small bakery offers honeyed cakes stacked in neat rows. You purchase one, warm and sticky, and bite into it with the reverence of a man who hasn't done anything important today and hopes that's okay. The sugar lingers on your tongue. The sun presses against your shoulders. The city churns below like a poem too long for one breath. And above it all, the toga clings like a lazy history book. You turn toward the theater of Marcellus. Its great arches loom like the skeleton of a half-finished dream, part entertainment, part monument, part real estate scheme gone right. You've sat there before. You've seen comedies where the actors wore masks large in their faces, and tragedies where everyone died, but the audience still clapped politely. Today it's empty. The steps warm. A few drowsy cats patrol the edges, as if auditioning for a silent drama of their own. You take a seat and watch the stage that isn't there. Today's historical fact. The Theater Marcellus, built under Augustus, could seat over 11,000 people. It was used for plays, musical performances, and occasionally, according to one particularly grumpy senator, a waste of daylight better spent arguing. You hear laughter nearby. Children playing with clay figurines, tiny gladiators and gods, crashing together like titans. A boy declares himself Neptune. Another disagrees violently with a stick. You smile. The empire continues. A woman walks past with a basket of herbs. Lavender, sage, maybe rue. She leaves a sprig on the steps without stopping. An offering, or just forgetfulness. Rome often blurs the two. You sit with your thoughts. They drift. You remember speeches gone well, and one that didn't, where your voice cracked and the crowd chuckled, and you felt like a statue that blinked at the wrong time. But they still clapped. Or maybe they just wanted lunch. An obscure cultural tidbit. Romans often attended plays barefoot, especially in summer. The marble floors of theaters stayed cool, and the sound of hundreds of bare feet was said to be a kind of applause all its own. Historians still debate whether the Roman appetite for theater was about art or escapism. Perhaps both. Rome excelled at pretending everything was fine, even when entire provinces were on fire. You lie back on the stone steps. The sky has gone white-blue. The sun is full. The day no longer stretches. It settles. You breathe deeply. The scent of time, dust, and heat folds over you like a second toga. Rome is wide awake now, but you are floating somewhere softer, slower. And in the far distance, past the arches, past cats, past the flickering banners of ambition and olive oil markets, you feel the hum of something ancient and invisible, the heartbeat of a city that never quite sleeps and never quite forgets. Afternoon bleeds into something gentler. The shadows grow long again, not as dramatic as dusk, not as sleepy as night. just long enough to remind you that time exists and likes to tap you politely on the shoulder. You find yourself walking one last stretch of stone road, this one cracked and flower-patched, the kind of path where nothing important happens. And that's exactly the point. A side street behind the Temple of Janus, where the doors are shut. Peace, at least for now, has been declared. You trail your fingers along the wall as you pass. The plaster crumbles slightly. Ancient graffiti still whispers someone's name, someone's boast, a crude drawing of someone else's nose. The wall remembers better than you do. You sit again, of course you do. A low wall, sun-warmed. A breeze curls through the alleyway like a bored muse. You let your toga go loose. Finally, no one's here to judge. Not even the gods. Not right now. Today's historical fact. The Temple of Janus, whose doors open in wartime and close in peace, stood as a public barometer of Rome's mood. It's said the doors were almost never shut, which tells you everything and nothing about Roman diplomacy. You hear footsteps, soft, slow, sandaled. A woman walks past carrying a bundle of scrolls. She drops one. You pick it up. She nods in thanks. Neither of you speaks. Neither of you has to. Rome is full of conversations that don't need words. An old man sells figs from a small cart. You buy two. They are warm from the sun, bursting with sweetness. He smiles like someone who's known emperors and knows they all eventually die. You give him an extra coin. He nods like you just passed a test. An obscure tidbit. Figs were believed to be the first cultivated fruit in Roman mythology. Romulus and Remus were suckled beneath a fig tree. The fruit was sacred, political, and also delicious. Historians still debate whether Rome's greatness lay in its military, its infrastructure, or its myth-making. But sitting here, fig juice on your fingers, sun in your lap, you begin to think the true empire was built in moments like this, quiet, unrecorded, human. You tilt your head back. You hear birds, a hammer, laughter from a window, the scrape of a chair. Rome's lullaby. You take a long breath and let your eyes soften. The wall behind you supports more than your spine. It seems to hold the weight of your whole day, your whole story. And then, wind down, final 300 words. You let the world fade, not suddenly, but gradually, like Rome falling into dusk, column by column, thought by thought. The light grows tender. The sky above the rooftops drapes itself in a soft violet shawl. The air cools against your skin, wrapping around you like quiet fabric. Your toga, creased and warm, becomes a blanket. The city no longer demands. It only sighs. Far away, a dog barks once. A torch crackles somewhere near a doorway. The sound of sandals fades on stone. A door closes with a gentle clunk. And then stillness. You feel your breath settle. Longer now. Slower. Like a tide pulling back. Even the sounds inside your own body begin to hush. The heartbeat, the thoughts, the questions. Rome no longer needs answers. She's asleep, and so are they. You remember the stone bench, the birds, the bread, the baths, the boys with their toy soldiers, the man with the figs, the smear of grape on your toga that never quite washed out. It's all here, still happening, somewhere, but you don't need to follow anymore. You've walked enough. You've listened enough. You've lingered in the wool folds of history, and now it holds you in return. You lie back, or maybe you don't. Maybe you only think about lying back. Either way, your body lets go. The forum slips into fog. The statues stop whispering. The stars return one by one in a sky that knows too many secrets to speak. The toga clings lightly at your side. The city cradles you like a story nearly finished. And in the last quiet space, before the final breath of the day, you sleep. Softly, slowly. As Rome continues, just barely, without you,